Hello. In this clip from our Justia webinar, From Billable Hours to Sustainable Income, The Power of Subscription Models Plus AI, Matthew Kurbis gives an overview of artificial intelligence while covering the different types of AI available. Remember, if you want to see more Justia videos on law practice and legal marketing, be sure to subscribe to our channel.
Thank you very much, and thank you to Justia for having me here today, and thank you everybody for joining me. So with that, I will go to a little picture on your screen so you can see the presentation. So as I was introduced, I'm the subscription attorney. Today we're going to be covering the topic From Billable Hours to Sustainable Income: The Power of Subscription Models Plus AI. So I've been practicing law for over 10 years, and pretty early on in my journey, I figured out that the billable hour doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense, and I was always looking for another solution. So when I decided to start my solo practice, which launched in March of 2022, I knew from the beginning, in the several months leading up to the launch, that I was going to not bill time at all. It was going to be completely based on the subscription model. And branding experts may disagree, but I just even decided to name my law firm Subscription Attorney LLC so people knew they could subscribe for legal advice. Well, from the beginning, since I was not billing time, I knew that I needed to be as efficient with my time as possible, and that meant using AI. This was before Gen AI hit the scene, so I've been using AI before it was cool to do so, and back then it was like not as good as Gen AI. So while I will be talking a little bit about non-Gen AI specific AI, just a little bit, it's mostly going to be about Gen AI as we've come to know it today. And I really do encourage that you use that Q&A feature because, I have a lot packed in here towards the end of the presentation that I'm not going to be able to go into in great detail, but it's more of like lists of resources that you can go and do more research on. So feel free to ask questions during the presentation today, and I'll address them as they come. It helps keep things interesting. So moving right along, here's what we're going to learn in today's session: how to correctly use AI for legal services. There's a lot of misinformation going around out there. I was there on day one when ChatGPT launched. I was playing around with GPT 3.0 at the time, which was cool, but not actually useful. And so when ChatGPT launched, I was right there, and I've been playing with all the tools ever since. And so I think I have a good grasp on how to actually use it correctly. Speaking of which, you'll learn a little bit about prompt engineering today. Could be its whole own presentation, but I'll even give you some basic prompts to get started with when leveraging these AI tools. We will then get into the subscription model, the most profitable way to bill clients when using AI, in my opinion. And really throughout today's presentation, you're going to see this vision for the future of what the practice of law will look like in this large language model world. But before even that, let's just lay the groundwork with a hypothetical. We're lawyers. We love hypotheticals. Here you go. You're billing your time. You charge $500 an hour. 10 hours of billable time makes you $5,000. Gen AI can make 10 hours of billable time take 10 minutes, maybe even 10 seconds. But we didn't go to law school because we love math, even if some of us have become good at it over the years. So let's just keep it simple for simple math purposes. Under this Gen AI world, $5,000, 10.0 billable work is only billable at 0.2, $100. What do you do? Raise your rates? Well, let's talk about that. To make 0.2 of an hour worth $5,000 means your billable rate would have to be $25,000 an hour. That's a 5,000% increase to your hourly rate, or if that's too many zeros attached to a number for you, 50x, 50 times your rate. So if you're not billing $500 an hour, multiply what your billable rate is by 50. That's what your billable rate's going to have to be. Will your clients be happy to pay that rate? Are you ethically even allowed to charge that high of a rate? Under your rules of professional conduct, is that a reasonable fee? Think so. And by the way, no legal ethics opinions provided today. Everything's just for educational purposes only. But a more important question, what does it mean for serving the latent legal market, which I'll define soon, and access to justice? What are your options? Well, I'm here to tell you something you probably already know because you're in attendance today, and that is the era of the billable hour is over. Enter the subscription model plus AI. So let's talk about AI, everybody's topic du jour. Personally, I prefer to start this presentation with subscription legal services, but AI is fun and really it doesn't make a case for why you need to adopt an alternative fee arrangement because of what AI is capable of doing. So let's talk about AI. What makes AI generative? So I talked about how there was pre-generative AI, like machine learning, algorithmic, predictive coding-based technology that we called AI, but it wasn't based on large language models. Well, Gen AI generates something. It generates text, it generates video, it generates images, it's generating something. But its comprehension ability is also good in the way that it generates. It's been trained on massive amounts of data to predict the next most likely, the word that is most likely to come next. And if you actually stop for a moment and think about how we communicate, like that's how we learn. Those of you who are parents, think back to when your kids were learning language. I have a 3.5-year-old right now, and she's trying to figure it out. She's trying to figure out tense, like when to use a past tense. Do you just add ed at the end of something to make it past tense? I mean, I feel so bad for her that the English language is what she's learning as her first language because a lot of the rules don't make sense. But you learn the rules is my point. And Gen AI, when it's being trained, it's kind of a lot like a child or a human learns language, and it's just predicting the next word. So it's a predictive model. And that's what helps it generate the next text or image or what have you. But in order to do that, it needs to be able to comprehend. So it's actually really good at comprehension. So these other AI tools that I was using in the beginning to figure out, is this clause a red flag, yellow flag, or green flag? It actually does an even better job at that now, these Gen AI tools based on large language models. So long story short, analysis is not necessarily generative, but it is powered by these Gen AI models now, even more so, right? And when used correctly, it can revolutionize your practice when you're not billing time. Important thing to consider, though, is Gen AI is not a source of facts or data. That is unless it's connected to a source of facts or data, but it itself should not be relied on as a source of truth. You are the source of truth or facts and data. AI is going to do a much better job when you give it cases to analyze that you've already identified as relevant to your case and query against them or ask for results from them or connected to an example brief or motion or contract that you already have. Then you're just asking it. Even if a Gen AI model is trained on all case law, being trained on all case law is kind of like a human reading and memorizing every case. Would you rely on that human to regurgitate verbatim? No. I mean, there are like a handful of humans that could do this, but even they have been tested and it's not perfect recall, even if it's near perfect recall. Well, Gen AI is not going to perfectly recall this. It's training data. It's amalgamated. It's synthesized in the large language model. You know, if it were a human, we'd say it's synthesized in their mind and their brain. But when you have access to a specific source of truth, like a data set of case law or statutes or something, and the way these models have guardrails on them or are trained is it's not training from that, it's tapping into it as a source of truth. This is called retrieval augmented generation, or RAG. I have a whole other presentation on this. But either you or the legal tech vendor, if it's a legal AI, is leveraging RAG to be a source of truth. These Gen AI tools on their own are not a source of truth. And while AI, as we all know, is not perfect, right? Hallucination is a term. That means it makes stuff up. But really, when you start to understand the way that AI works, it's not hallucinating. It's doing exactly what it's designed to do. You're just using it as a screwdriver to hammer a nail, not as a hammer to hammer a nail. So when you use it as a source of truth, it's going to quote unquote hallucinate, but that's not what it's not a source of truth. That's not what it's designed to do. Humans make mistakes too, by the way. And we're going to make more mistakes than AI, and less predictably than AI will make mistakes. And so while it's not perfect, it is less prone to human error, and that error is predictable. Another way to think about Gen AI is like it's a toddler who has earned a master's degree in English. You're going to have to suspend your disbelief for this example. Has read everything on the internet, is a method actor, has a photographic memory, but who can only access this perfect memory when prompted, and as I discussed, doesn't even draw from it perfectly. Because after too much prompting, this toddler will even forget the previous questions asked earlier in the same conversation. Now, this is called a context window. If you've done any deep dives on AI, you come across this term context window. It's how much information you could give the AI tool that it's able to reference back to, and how much of a history that conversation log can have with an AI tool. So in this example, would you trust this toddler as a source of truth? Of course not. A toddler's brain isn't fully developed, even if this toddler has perfect recall and could write in the style of any well-known author. Like a toddler, like toddlers at certain points, not when they get into terrible twos and when they're teenagers, but like a toddler, Gen AI wants to do anything to make its parents or prompt engineers, legal prompt engineers if you're an attorney, happy, and it will make up facts using its clever, imagination-like algorithm to seem really convincing. Because it's good at being really convincing, and it's actually incredibly imaginative when prompted the right way. An example that comes to mind is how Gen AI helped a lawyer doing legal research on what's going to happen in a world where we have all self-driving cars. Is there anything to analogize that to? And the Gen AI came up with, well, maybe elevators. There's cases, like old case law on when elevators used to be human operated and then became operated independently from humans, right? So like I consider that incredibly creative. Maybe not in the way we think of humans being creative.
Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did enjoy it, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more videos on law practice and legal marketing. See you in our next clip.